All right, I want to talk about what I think might be the three most interesting games of the week. I don't know if they're going to end up being the best games, but these three games are extremely interesting to me for a lot of different reasons. I want to talk about Texas Tech at Utah, Auburn at Oklahoma, and Michigan on the road at Nebraska. Let's start with Texas Tech and Utah. A lot of talk about Texas Tech. Turn this down some. A lot of talk about Texas Tech heading into the season. They spent $1 billion in the portal. They've sort of gone all in, trying to revamp and reload that roster, and they've looked pretty good through the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season. They've yet to face any serious competition. That'll change this Saturday when they're on the road at Utah, one of the best coached teams, not just in the Big 12, but in all of college football, and it can be a difficult place to play. Utah made some significant changes of their own in the offseason. They brought in a new quarterback and his coordinator, and their offense has looked really good here early on. Now, they had a disappointing year last year, no doubt about it. Utah did. Cam Rising was hurt for what seemed like the 8th year in a row out of his 12-year college career, and they had some other injuries and just completely derailed their season. Very uncharacteristic record for Utah and Kyle Whittingham last year at Utah. Now, I think everybody knew Utah was going to be better than last year. The question was going to be how much better, and would it be enough better than last year to sort of take that step towards the Big 12 title game and a potential playoff spot. And through the first 3 weeks of the season, the answer to that question appears to be yes, they are good enough to potentially make the Big 12 championship game. The Big 12 is, of course, compacted at the top, whether you're talking about Arizona State, Iowa State, Utah, Texas Tech, BYU, Kansas, I think is still a pretty good team. There are a lot of teams in the Big 12 right now that you can put in the category of contender to win the Big 12. And of course, because of the playoff structure that we're operating under, whoever wins the Big 12 is getting into the college football playoff. Whether that team is 13-0 and looks dominant all year, or whether that team is 9-3 in the regular season and finishes 10-3 with a Big 12 title over another 9-3 Big 12 team, they're still headed to the playoffs. Both of these teams think they're that team. I'm very, very interested to see what Texas Tech looks like here against decent competition and on the road in a pretty tough environment. I've been impressed with both these teams early on. Utah's a 3-point favorite at home, so they're basically telling you that in their eyes, Vegas eyes, the sports books eyes, the ones that set the numbers on these games, they're basically telling you that these two teams, or they think these two teams, are basically even because you get about 2 or 3 points in your favor for home field advantage in college football. I'm having a hard time talking myself into taking Texas Tech in this game, not because I don't think they're any good, but I'm looking at it's sort of a more known commodity in Utah. And I don't even mean, again, based off of last year to this year, because Utah was not great last year. But I've seen Kyle Whittingham and this Utah team be one of the best coached teams. One of the lines of scrimmage have been great at Utah under Kyle Whittingham. They're extremely disciplined. They don't make very many mistakes or penalties. They don't do things to beat themselves generally. And so I think I'm going to have to roll with Utah in this one. It's not that I don't think Texas Tech is any good here, but I need to see Texas Tech perform at the level that we're being told they're capable of performing at in a big moment, in a big game against quality competition, in this case on the road, before I can fully buy into the Texas Tech hype train. I'm not the world's biggest fan on sort of let's dump the whole team and start over by spending $1 billion through the portal type move. Not that it can't ever work. I'm just not a huge fan of it. And Utah, well, this year Utah's done a similar thing, not nearly to the extent as Texas Tech, but a lot of new on Utah too. I'm just going to go with the more known commodity at head coach in Whittingham and at program in Utah, and I'm going to take Utah to win that one. But this is probably the game I'm most excited to watch this weekend, just because I think we'll have a lot of questions answered about Texas Tech. And I won't be surprised if Texas Tech goes there and wins the game, but you got to make a pick here. So I'm going to lean on the side of Texas Tech, or on Utah. I'm sorry, Utah at home -3. All right, 2 more games. Auburn on the road at Oklahoma, Michigan on the road at Nebraska. Before we get to those, I want to give a big shout out to the good people over at Sleeper. They've been kind enough to sponsor today's video. Make sure you check out the Sleeper app. Download it today. Use promo code LOU, L-O-U, and they're going to give you a 100% match on your first deposit, dollar for dollar, up to $100. So you deposit 50, they'll give you another 50. You deposit 100, they'll give you another 100. Download a Sleeper app. It makes watching these games every weekend a lot more fun. You're picking more or less on player stats. You're not picking winners or losers of game. So if you got a favorite player or a favorite team, head on over to the Sleeper app, find the numbers on your favorite players, and you can make yourself some money watching college football. You can win up to 1,000 times your money. I already have a play put in this week on the Sleeper app. Here it is right here. All right, here's the Sleeper app right here, put up on my phone. I've got it mirrored to the computer so you can see it. Now, this is the home screen that comes up when you first log on to Sleeper. You can see I've got the college football tab highlighted at the top, and it just lists all the different players playing this weekend in college football, and it'll list a stat line for that player. So, for example, DJ Lagway on the screen here, passing yards, 226.5. So you're just picking more or less than that, whether you think you'll have more or less. Here's the pick I put in the other day here. Tell me, what are my chances here? Now, we're going to talk about some of these other games that are coming up here in a minute, but I've got Dylan Raiola, less than 224.5 passing yards. Michigan, a good defense there. We're going to talk about that in a second. I've got John Mateer, the quarterback at Oklahoma. They play at home against Auburn. I think John Mateer is going to have a big game. First of all, Oklahoma's pretty good. John Mateer is pretty good. And Jackson Arnold is the quarterback for Auburn, who was the quarterback at Oklahoma last year. So I think John Mateer wants to just sort of remove any remaining doubt about if there even is any. There isn't in my mind about whether or not Oklahoma made the right decision in benching Jackson Arnold and going out and get John Mateer. So I've got more than 248.5 passing yards on John Mateer. And then DJ Lagway, boy, things are down bad in Gainesville, ain't they? Had 5 interceptions last week. They play on the road at Miami this coming week. Miami's defense much better than last year. They revamped their secondary. DJ Lagway's passing yards total sits at 218.5. I've got less than 218.5 passing yards for DJ Lagway. So what do you think? What are my chances on that? Well, you can see $10 would win me 55 there. Now, you can stack picks. You can do 2 picks, 3 picks, 4 picks, 5 picks, 6 picks. You can make as many picks as you want. Keep in mind, you got to hit them all if you want to win. So the more you add in there, the harder it is. I went 2 for 2 last weekend, though. I did 2 different plays on Sleeper, 3 picks each, and I hit them both. So it is possible to win every once in a while. Download the Sleeper app. You'll be glad you did. All right, let's talk about this Auburn and Oklahoma game. The Jackson Arnold Bowl. Now, Oklahoma was an absolute disaster last year, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. And while there were more than one problem with Oklahoma's offense last year, offensive line, injuries at the wide receiver position, quarterback was the glaring weakness there. They started Jackson Arnold, a young quarterback, a lot of talent, a lot of hype coming out of high school, very highly rated and recruited. Everybody wanted him. He lands at Oklahoma. Things didn't go well at all for him. He was benched multiple times during the season. They sort of got in the quarterback hokey-pokey routine last year at Oklahoma. It just didn't go well. Jackson Arnold decides to hit the portal. He lands at Auburn. Oklahoma brings in John Mateer. So you've got the quarterback of Auburn, Jackson Arnold, facing the team he played for last year, Oklahoma, on the road in Norman. Oklahoma's a 7-point favorite in this one. Now, Oklahoma's already played a really tough game against Michigan at home, and they dominated, especially defensively. They made Michigan look bad, made Bryce Underwood look bad, and offensively, they did enough to win the game. John Mateer has been playing at a ridiculous level through the first 3 weeks of the season. He is on just about everybody's Heisman list at this point in the season. Now, Heismans are not won in the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season, and it's completely possible and probably likely that we end up adding names to the Heisman list of people we aren't even thinking about right now in the first month of the season. But John Mateer's season really couldn't have gotten off to a better start at Oklahoma. Jackson Arnold and Auburn, on the other hand, while also undefeated, sitting at 3-0, they also have a win against a Power 4 opponent. For Auburn, it was on the road at Baylor back in week 1. I haven't been nearly as impressed with what I've seen from Auburn on either side of the ball. Now, they have ran the ball well at times. They beat Baylor in sort of a shootout game, and Jackson Arnold, with his legs, went absolutely crazy in that game. The offensive line was suspect to me for Auburn in that game. They had a hard time keeping the Baylor pass rush off of Jackson Arnold, and that's what led to a lot of Jackson Arnold's rushing yards in that game. In the 2 games since then, Auburn has played lower classification teams, but they've yet to show the ability to push the ball downfield consistently. They do have really good wide receivers, Cam Coleman in particular, but they've got a couple of wide receivers that can get behind defenses, that can stretch you vertically. But their problem the last few years is they haven't had a quarterback that has been able to get them the ball in those scenarios, the downfield scenarios. And through the first 3 weeks of the season, that appears to be a problem yet again for Auburn. Now, it's always possible that this is the game that we see that this is the game that it clicks, that the offensive line holds up against what's going to be by far the best defense of the year that Auburn has played so far. Jackson Arnold's able to have time in the pocket to go through his reads and hit some big plays downfield. That is a possibility. And if Auburn wants to win this game, that's what's going to happen. I believe that Oklahoma is too good defensively to get beat by a one-dimensional team, whether that's running the ball with the running backs or Jackson Arnold running around. Not that Jackson Arnold won't make any plays. He probably will. He probably will scramble and get loose on a couple of occasions, whether it's designed quarterback runs or protection breakdowns where he scrambles and takes off. Now, Oklahoma did a really good job preventing Bryce Underwood from doing that, but that was Bryce Underwood's second ever start of his college career. He's a true freshman quarterback at Michigan, went on the road at Norman, and they really made him look silly. I don't think Jackson Arnold is going to play as bad in this game as Bryce Underwood did in that game. And it's got nothing to do with who I think the better quarterback is between the two, Jackson Arnold and Bryce Underwood, and everything to do with the fact that that was Bryce Underwood's second ever start, first ever road start. And Jackson Arnold, although he didn't play well last year, has a ton of experience at both home and on the road. I don't think he'll be nervous or overwhelmed by the environment or the atmosphere. He saw plenty of crazy road atmospheres last year at Oklahoma. I just don't know if he's got the ability to do it. Auburn defensively has not impressed me either this year. They gave up over 500 yards of offense in that win over Baylor. And it's hard for me to find an advantage for Auburn in this game. They're on the road. That's a disadvantage. Defensively for Auburn, I have a hard time trying to figure out how they're going to stop or even slow down what appears to be one of the better offenses in the SEC through the first month of the season in Oklahoma. John Mateer can light it up through the air. He can run around just like Jackson Arnold can, and they've got a legitimate ground game. Defensively for Oklahoma, they're suffocating. And I have not seen nearly enough from Auburn offensively through the first couple of weeks of the season to be able to pick them to win this game. And because it's on the road, I don't even know if they're going to be able to keep it close. I think Jackson Arnold may show up in this game and what's the expression? He's doing too much. You need to do less. You're doing too much. I have a feeling Jackson Arnold may try to do too much in this game. It is a big game for him going back and playing at the team he used to play for, but it's a big game for John Mateer too to sort of prove that Oklahoma, made the right decision. I just think Oklahoma's the better team here. I think they've got the better quarterback here. And they're at home. I'm going to take Oklahoma and lay to 7 points. Now, the last game I want to talk about is Michigan and Nebraska, and I think this might be the biggest game of the three. This kind of feels like an elimination game to me, particularly for Michigan, who already is sitting on one loss. Now, that one loss was a non-con loss, so has nothing to do with Michigan's ability to make the Big Ten title game, but this game does have to do with their ability to make the Big Ten title game because this, of course, is a conference game. When you look at both of these teams' schedules, while they're not the most difficult schedules in the Big Ten, both of these teams have very difficult games remaining. It feels to me like if Michigan loses this game, that would be their second loss, their first Big Ten loss. At that point, I find it hard to believe that week 3, week 4, sitting on 2 losses if you lose and you're Michigan, that you're going to run the table to finish at 10-2 and potentially make the Big Ten title game in the playoffs. It seems likely that if Michigan loses this game on the road at Nebraska, that there is at least one additional loss for Michigan somewhere on the schedule, whether you want to fast forward to Ohio State or find some of those other tough games in between. For Nebraska, it's a similar story minus the non-con loss. Again, with Nebraska, if they were to lose this game at home, you look forward to the games they have coming up. While not the most difficult schedule, it would be hard to win the next 9 games in a row, I think, or 8 games in a row, whatever it is, if you're Nebraska. It feels like this is a huge game for both of these teams in terms of season-long goals, postseason destinations, things like that. You've got the year 3 or 4 rule for Matt Rule. He does tend to get better in these spots. Dylan Raiola now has a full year of starting experience under his belt. And while I watched the entire Nebraska and Cincinnati game, I was not that impressed with Dylan Raiola or Nebraska offensively in that game. It seemed kind of mismatched, jumbled up. It didn't seem like a clear sort of identity or plan in that game. Now, they've played much better since then, but it was against lower-level competition. Cincinnati's not that good either, though. I really think Nebraska should have handled I thought they would have handled Cincinnati a little easier. Maybe you can chalk that up to it being week one, game one, shaking the rust off, some nerves, whatever. Maybe you give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt there. But I thought they would have played better. Dylan Raiola has played better since then, like I mentioned, against the lower classification schools, and we'll see if he can carry that over into this one at home against Michigan. I think this is a huge game for Nebraska. If you're Michigan, this is Bryce Underwood's now second road trip. So can he handle the environment on Saturday better than he was able to a couple of weeks ago on the road in Norman? Well, you would think so, just because he's at least been through something similar now, right? Now, he didn't handle it well. He didn't play well. And to be fair to Bryce Underwood at Michigan, really nobody on Michigan's offense played that great. Justice Haynes did end up with over 100 yards rushing, but he got 75 of that on one play to start the third quarter. Beyond that, Michigan just really had a hard time moving the ball at all against Oklahoma back in week 2, I guess that was. They're going to have to play much better offensively in this game if they want to win. As good as Michigan is defensively, I do think that Nebraska will move the ball and score. I won't be surprised at all if Nebraska gets into the mid or high 20s here. And so this isn't a case, I don't think, where Michigan's going to win this game 13-10. I don't think that can be the plan. I think they're going to have to come up with a way to manufacture yards, first downs, points. They may have to go for it on a couple of fourth downs. I honestly don't know who the better overall team is here in this one. Michigan is actually favored on the road by 2. I kind of disagree. I like Nebraska at home here. I'm not completely sold on either team yet as a legitimate threat to win the Big Ten or make the college football playoff. But the winner of this game will have a step up and a step in the right direction towards those two goals. This is one of those things where no outcome would surprise me. 2 of these games are that way. I said the same thing about the Texas-Utah game. I would be shocked if Auburn beats Oklahoma. I'm not going to. I don't think Auburn's very good. I try to do these. I try to leave the trash talk out of these preview and prediction videos, and for the most part, I do a pretty good job. And I'm not trash talking now when I tell you, I just don't think Auburn's very good. I don't. Their offense has been bad. Anyway, we already did that. Michigan and Nebraska. This seems like a coin flip situation to me. I'm going to take the home team with the more experienced quarterback. That's what I like to rely on in a game where I don't really have a strong lean one way or the other in terms of who the better team is. I'll say, well, who's the home team and who's got the better quarterback or the more experienced quarterback? At this point in their careers, you got to roll your dice with Dylan Raiola. Could Underwood become one of the greatest quarterbacks in Michigan history? Could he go on to do a bunch of great things down the road? Of course he could. He's still a true freshman, so yes, those possibilities still exist. But at this point in time, I think you have to roll the dice with the home team and Dylan Raiola. I'm going to take Nebraska to win the game outright. They're a 2-point underdog. All right, there you go. That's my thoughts on Texas Tech at Utah, Auburn at Oklahoma, and Michigan at Nebraska. 3 of the most interesting games of the week to me in a week 4 that I think is going to be another good one. There's some great games, and we'll talk about some more later in the week. Florida and Miami is interesting. Is Billy Napier getting fired on Sunday? There's great games all over the all over the place in college football this coming weekend. But there you go. There's my thoughts on 3 of them. Appreciate you watching. Make sure you download the Sleeper app and have a good morning.